Hi, welcome to Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid, Botbrack for short. I'm Mobile Box and I'm going to be ranking the albums by Night Ranger today. One of my favourite AOR hard rock bands of the 80s. So let's get down to it. They've got 13 studio albums. And my number 13 choice is 2007's Hole in the Sun. So this album came in a funny period for the band. They'd done a sort of couple of comeback albums in the late 90s, and there's a big gap, and then they do this, and then shortly after this they sack Jeff Watson a couple of years later, one of the the founding members, so to speak, or the first members, who formed such an amazing guitar duo with Brad Gillis. I think the problem with this album is it's just a bit kind of flat. It kind of not sure what it wants to be. It's not really catchy. It is. I don't know. It doesn't feel like the band's kind of happy on this. There's obviously maybe some issues. I can't really pick out a song I really like on it, if I'm honest. It's not terrible. It just doesn't connect. I remember hearing it at the time, and I played it recently. So that's my number 13 choice. If you're going to want to check out Night Ranger, I wouldn't go for this. My number 12 is Neverland. This is an album I actually got more recently because it had been kind of recommended, if you're wanting to get some later Night Ranger stuff. This is from 1997. But again, this album, it's just that funny period. It's their sort of comeback album after splitting up in 89. Technically, we'll come to that. But it's in that period where bands that were successful in the 80s are often getting deals with the labels, and they're trying to relaunch themselves, sort of the classic sound, but trying to be a bit more contemporary. This is actually a Japanese-based release, I think. Ron Neverson produces it. Now, Ron Neverson also produced UFO's Walk on Water album, which was initially released in Japan. So my feeling is there's probably a thing around that time where bands that were big in the 80s or 70s in Japan, but fallen by the wayside in the European US markets, were given an opportunity there. Production-wise, it's okay. Just looking at the albums on this, sorry, not the albums, the songs, just apologies, just going on the playlist. Yeah, it starts off with Forever All Over Again, which is all right. Then there's Neverland, which I'm just not really into. Then there's some kind of tracks like My Elusive Mind, where they kind of seeming like they're touching base with a more 90s sound because they're kind of hoping they'll catch fire again. But what these bands learned was you just have to sound like yourself and accept you're not going to be as popular. And then your audience, who always like you, will always like you. And that's the truth. Yeah, there's not really New York Times okay. Again, there's not terrible songs on this. It just doesn't feel Night Ranger really enough for me. So that's my number 12 choice. My number 11 choice, you probably won't be surprised, is 1998's Seven. So this is the album that comes after Hole in the Sun. When you look at the cover of this album, it's quite interesting. It kind of sums up where we are in the 90s for bands. In the 80s, obviously, bands would wear more colourful clothes and stuff like that. Night Ranger would. The band are all dressed in kind of black on the front, apart from Kelly Keegy, who's got like a brown suede jacket. But they're just looking more sensible, more subdued, more 90s, not as 80s. This album's better. It opens with Sign of the Times. Panic and Jane, I think, is pretty good. Kong's quite good. Peace Sign or When I Call on You, they're pretty decent. I don't know this album as well. I gave it a few spins, but it's better. It's got good production. It's more Night Ranger-ish than Neverland, but still not where it should be. So the reason this is weird, this is called Seven because it's actually their 8th album, but their 7th album, which I think I'm going to pick next, is actually feeding off the Mojo. So the controversy with this album is that basically Brad Gillis and Kelly Keegy, after Jack Blades left to do Damn Yankees and had huge success, They kept going. They got on a singer called Gary Moon, who's kind of got a Tom Kiefer vibe on some tracks. And they did an album, Feeding Off the Mojo. It's got a pretty poor album artwork. What's weird about it is actually production's good. It's produced by David Prater, so David Prater will be familiar to you from his work with Firehouse and of course on Dream Theatre's Images and Words. Sampled snare aside, it's a fantastic sounding album, the guitars, and this is a really good sounding record. It's quite raucous. Gary Moon's vocals kind of work. The problem is it doesn't sound like Night Ranger because you've only got Kelly Keagy or Jack Blades on, but it is a pretty decent record. The writing's good, the production's good. It's got a good guitar from Brad. Some people kind of really rate this record. I'm kind of in between on it. I think it's it is a good record. It's worth checking out. How legitimate it is as a Night Ranger album's a difficult one to sort of kind of process. And Gary Moon sings quite a bit on it. Okay, so that's my number 10 choice. My number 9 choice is And the Band Played On. This is from 2020, and this got pretty slagged at the time when it came out. Listening to it recently, it's not great. It's a bit poppy, but I think it's pretty decent. I give it 6 out of 10. I think the band had kind of moved out of Nashville. There's probably a bit of more of the pop in sort of influence on that. But the single Breakout's decent. Cold as December, Lucky Man. There's not really a track that jumps out on this, but it is good quality. It's well produced. It's a bit more poppy. I wouldn't say it's the album I'd go to check Night Ranger out. So now my number 8 choice is Don't Let Up from 2017. So this is sort of in the period, including And the Band Played On, and albums that come before of Night Ranger's kind of, proper kind of comeback. Again, this album, I feel like it's kind of taken a notch down from the ones that came before it, but it's still got they've kind of rediscovered the Night Ranger sound. The production's good. It's got good guitar work. Vocals are good. Somehow, some way, running out of time are good. We Can Work It Out. Jamie's a really good rocker at the end. I think his Say What You Want's good tune. Again, I give this probably a bit more than 6 out of 10, maybe 6.5. It's not an album I totally, again, think's like prime Night Ranger. But it's in that period where they're sounding more like the Night Ranger we know and love. Okay, so now we're coming to number 7. So we're starting to get more into albums. I would be like, look, if you wanted to check Night Ranger out, it is worth, I recommend this. So this is the album High Road. So this is from 2014. So this is their second album in their sort of proper getting it together period. I think this is a really good sounding record. I actually think it's probably the best sounding record since it came back. It's polished. It's maybe could be more raucous, but it's got a really nice balance on the drums, guitars and stuff. High Road, the title track that opens the album, it's a really good track. Great sort of upbeat Night Ranger vibe, good vocal from Jack Blades. Then pretty much after that it is consistent. This has got a track of LA No Name on the end, which is a weird instrumental by Joel Hoekstra, which is a really good guitar piece. It's a bit long, but that was actually a bonus track on another album as well. I think we just released it again. There's not particularly a bad track on this. For me, it's not as strong as stuff that's come before, but it has got that consistency. I'd probably give it, again, probably 7 out of 10. Like I say, it's a very good sounding record, very polished, and continues a good streak for them. So that's my number 7. My number 6 is 1987's Big Life. So we're getting into like the classic era of Night Ranger here. 1 second, I just need to do something. I just need to get an album up. Sorry for later. Apologies. The listing of the tracks. But Big Life came out 1987. I bought it the week it came out. I was a big Night Ranger fan. This album begins a sort of, a tail off. They're probably getting a bit more commercial. Record label probably wants to hit with ballads. They moved away from producer Pat Glasser, which maybe wasn't a bad thing, but it's still a good record. I think Gillis and Watson play some great solos on this, although the solos could be louder. There's a good balance of vocals between Jack Blades and Kelly Keagy. Production's okay by Kevin Elson. Side 1 is probably the strongest of it. You've got Big Life, Love Is Standing Near, Colour You Smile, and The Excellent Rain Comes Crashing Down. A really good ballad. It's got a fantastic solo on that. Great outro solo by Jeff Watson as well. Side 2's more patchy. It opens with The Secret of My Success, which is the pop hit from the film, which I like. It's actually produced by David Foster. He of Chicago and Whitney Houston fame and stuff, and you can tell it's got kind of lots of samples and that. It is a catchy track, but the production kind of jars with the rest of the album. Then I think you've got Carry On, which is quite a good rocker. Kelly Keagy sings it, but then you've got two real duffers. There's Better Let It Go, good solo on it. I Know Tonight, which is really just kind of forgettable. Then there's Hearts Away, which is a decent ballad. Fitting in with the formula of finishing with a ballad from the previous album, and that's a good Kelly Keagy one. Again, this album I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. It probably needed a bit more writing, maybe an extra track, something like that. In actual fact, at the time they did a song called The Girls All Like It, which is the B-side. Colour You Smile, I think. Actually, The Girls All Like It's a good rocker, and that would have been better than I Know Tonight. You can just see the Rattle Company's influence there. Again, it's got another great solo by Brad Gillis. I should just say that Jeff Watson and Brad Gillis are one of the absolute best guitar duos ever, because they kind of technically match each other in different ways, pound for pound. Brad uses his whammy bar, does all the cool harmonic tricks, and has that kind of high gain sound. And one interesting thing about Brad Gillis, he actually plays a lot of solo parts in a lower register. He likes to use that low register, which is interesting. Then Jeff Watson's got his cool kind of pentatonic, style with a nice wide vibrato, and then he's got his 8-finger tapping, which is a bit gimmicky really. He kind of pulls off, but he does these flurries, and then you can tell who's who. But typically in a lot of other guitar duos, there tends to be one guitarist who's a notch above. It's certainly the case in Judas Priest, Iron Maiden. I think Aiden is Priest are considered a notch above. Megadeth, Dave Mustaine, all these are Riffmeister. His solos are nowhere near the standard of Chris Poland or Marty Friedman or, other guys have come in. So, sometimes there's that thing with guitar duos where they're not evenly matched, maybe Gore and Robertson pretty evenly matched. A lot of people prefer Robbo. But anyway, that's just a take on that. So this was quite a tough one, really, picking this one ahead of Big Life. But I always liked it more. The production's a bit tinny. It was recorded digitally, one of the first, rock albums recorded like that. I remember the band like The Sound of Turbo by Judas Priest. So it's 1988's Man in Motion. I actually bought this on import. It didn't get a UK release straight away. Maybe it never did. Actually, cool cover. But Alan Fitzgerald had left by here, so there's less keyboards. But it rocks. You've got the title track, Man in Motion, which has got some really, really great guitar playing on it. Excellent Reason to Be. Really nice acoustic track, Kelly Keagy singing as well. And then Don't Start Thinking I'm Alone Tonight, which really could have been a big hit. Great vocal by Jack Blades. Lovely guitar work. Intro by Brad Gillis. Great solo. Then you got Love Shot Me Down, which isn't as good as the first one. It's a good rocker. And then Restless Kind, one of the best ballads a band ever did. Really euphoric chorus on this. And, the cheesy key change at the end, but brilliant. Lovely solo with a lovely harmony from Brad and Jeff. That was side 1 of the original vinyl. And then it opened halfway to Sun, which was another rocker, which was crazy Jeff Watson tapping. Like that, Brad and Jeff kind of step up on this album. I think that's why I always liked it. I remember on the front cover of Guitar World with this, and it's at the height of shred, and that you could tell I'd kind of been putting the hours in just to take it an extra level. Here She Comes Again, which is okay, decent this track, fantastic solo by Brad Gillis on this, with some great whammies. Right On You, probably one of the weaker tracks, but it's okay. Kiss Me Where It Hurts, this is a shit track. They shouldn't have had this album. Then there's a Did It To Love, which is a kind of Russ ballad. I like it, it's a bit cheesy. Woman in Love, it finished with alright. It's front loaded, this album, I think that's the thing, but I think the tracks that are strong Light Restless Kind, Reason to Be, but Don't Stop Thinking I'm Alone Tonight are very, very good and up there with the band's very best works. Again, I give it a 7. Just pipping Big Life. So then we're into the cream of the crop. These next albums are the really, really, really good, really strong Night Ranger records. So quite probably, well, maybe not controversially, but I picked their 2011 release, Somewhere in California. This is very much a comeback album for Night Ranger. That had those 2 albums in the 90s with the weird Feeding Off the Mojo as well, the 3rd album. Then there was like Hole in the Sun. There's this big gap. Jeff Watson goes, and then they kind of settle. They've got Joel Hoekstra in, and Joel Hoekstra really brings a breath of fresh air into this. And this album's just really strong. The production's really good, and the songs, there's 11 tracks on it. I think LA No Name was a bonus track on it, on other versions, and then it got used as a bonus track again on High Road. Could be wrong. But it just opens with the title track, Growing Up in California, and it's got all the kind of punchy euphoria Americana of Night Ranger. You know, Night Ranger just sounds like you still rock in America and stuff like that, you know. And this is what it's like. Cool harmonics as well from Brad. Then you got Lay It On Me, which is good. It's got a kind of cool kind of lick at the start. It's got a kind of dark riff, really good. Bye Bye Baby, Not Tonight. Not quite as good as the other first 2, but still a catchy song. Then probably the best track on the album, Follow Your Heart, one of the best. This is really good. It's 6:46. It's a bit epic. It's got a cool kind of jazzy jam at the start. Sounds a bit like Foreplay by Boston. Really good chorus and a fantastic solo at the end, where Joel and Brad trade off and do great harmonies and play over the changes really well. You know, a solo that really, really is up there with the top Night Ranger solos of old. Time of Our Lives, really good power ballad. No Time to Lose You, another catchy upbeat rocker in a classic Night Ranger tradition. Live for Today, quite interesting. This is a bit more psychedelic. It's kind of like a little bit like that 90s experimentation I had, but it's got more the Night Ranger-ness, as it were. Quite a long track, 6 or 4. They don't do very long tracks, Night Ranger. Well, they do, but not that long. But it's a good track. It's Not Over. Catchy chorus on this. Then you got End of the Day, which is very decent track. Then Rock and Roll Tonight, which is cheesy, but has a really cool I think it has a really cool 8-finger tapping solo in this. So Joel Hoekstra does 8-finger tapping. I think that's one of the reasons he got in the band. It could be the next track. I'm just trying to remember that has that, but it's cool. Then it finishes with Say It With Love, which is a really strong finishing track, and quite interesting that the band would finish with a good rocker instead of a ballad. So yeah, this is a really good record. I'd give this a solid 8 out of 10, possibly more. A really good comeback album. After this, you know, they did High Road, which was similar but not quite as good, but it is good. Don't Let Up, and the band played on, you know, it kind of declines, but they kind of found the mojo. I think they've got another really good album in them, you know, of this standard, and I think it'll come at some point if they keep making albums. Okay, so now we're into, yeah, no surprise, people who know Night Ranger will know, they won't know what the next 3 choices are going to be in terms of order, but they'll know what 3 albums are. So my number 3 choice is 1985 Seven Wishes. This used to be my favourite Night Ranger album when I first got it. I bought it in 1986, year after it came out. I think compared to what comes before, there's a couple of things that lets it down. I think the production's not great. I think it's got a trashy drum sound. I think the Pat Glasser thing was running its course. And the songwriting's just a little patchier. But over to the title track, Seven Wishes, which is really good. Quite heavy, mean and moody. Really like it. Great solo by Jeff. Then you got Faces, which is another really good track with a top solo by Brad. Then you got 4 in the Morning, which is a single, which is a really good Jack Blades vocal. And then track 4 is I Need a Woman. Now, I'm not really into this track, although it's got a really good Brad solo, of course. So that's a kind of dip for me. Then it finishes with Sentimental Street, which is a really good ballad. You know, it's not as good as their famous ballad, and obviously they've tried to sort of repeat the formula, but it is really good. It's got a cool lyric, good vocal by Kelly Keegy, and of course a top solo by Brad. Side 2 opens with This Boy Needs to Rock, which it does what it says on the tin. It rocks and it's really good fun. I really like this track. My only thing is the bridge it's got a poor pre-chorus compared to the verses and chorus, which is a really good solo in the middle and a really good breakdown. Then you've got I Will Follow, which is a track I didn't used to like, but when I was listening to the album recently to do this, I was like, actually, it is a good track, it's decent. And then you've got Interstate Love Affair, which I like, and it's got really cool little guitar trade-offs. Then you've got Night Machine, which it was okay, a hilarious solo by Brad with some crazy whammies, and then trades off with Jeff. And then it finishes with Goodbye, another acoustic ballad, which is quite a reasonable hit for the band, I think. It's a good track, good Kelly Keegy vocal. It's in that thing, where, they're doing the ballads because that's where they know the hits are. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. Just kind of thing. But it is part of that purple patch. So, number 2, number 1, people won't be surprised by this. What is number 2, what is number 1? It's just, some people think 1's number 2, some people think 1's number 1, if you know what I mean. But my number 2 choice is 1983's Midnight Madness. This is their breakout album. It has their big hits, You Can Still Rock in America, Sister Christian. This is one thing that stands out about this album. This is the best sounding album of this era. Pat Glasser does a really good job of production on this. And they kind of have the quirky keyboard sounds as well of Alan Fitzgerald, which can be a bit jarring, but they make the band stand out. But You Can Still Rock in America is great. It's a great rocker. It's got a fantastic guitar solo, from Brad and Jeff. You've got Rooms in the Air, another fantastic track, another fantastic solo, really good. Then Why Does Love Have to Change? And then, of course, Sister Christian. This was side 1. I actually got this album when I got back from France. I went on holiday in France when I was 14 in 1985. We bought like a French metal magazine, my brother and I, and it had a Night Ranger feature on it. 7 Wishes had come out, and then I went back. When I got back off holiday, I went to in Wilko's, or what was Wilko's in Lancaster. Wilko's in Lancaster now is still there. Was a shop, and it had that floor space to other stores, and there was a record shop in there for a bit. I bought Van Halen 1 there actually, but on that day I bought Bark at the Moon, I think with blue or red writing on mine, and I bought Midnight Madness. So when I took it home, I did like that one, but I didn't quite connect with it, and I kind of parked it, and then I went back to it later on, earlier that next year. I kind of got into the album, and then I bought 7 Wishes, and my next choice. But side 2, Touch of Madness, really good rocker with crazy whammies. You got Passion Play, good track. Chipping Away, Not When You Close Your Eyes. When You Close Your Eyes, yes, that one. And then the album finishes with Let Him Run, which is a really good acoustic track. I'd give this album like 8.5, maybe a 9. It is a really, really strong record. Like I said, there's a couple of tracks are more fillery, but yeah, it's very good. One thing I should say with Night Ranger, one of my criticisms of this early year is sometimes the guitar sounds a little thin, the distorted sound. One thing is good now, they've got more balls on the guitar sound, but I don't know why that was. So my number 1 choice, no surprise, is Dawn Patrol. One of the misfortunes for some bands is not only does their debut album their best album, but sometimes it actually starts with the best song they ever did. And that's the case with this album. Don't Tell Me You Love Me, Don't Tell Me You Love Me is an all-time classic Night Ranger track. And it's their best track. It's a great track, and it's got one of the all-time great solos from Brad and Jeff. Perfect contrast. This is a really great record, start to finish. You've got Don't Tell Me You Love Me, Sing Me Away, The Night She Sleeps, Is It Call My Name, Eddie's Coming Out Tonight. That was side 1, great. Then I think You Can't Find Me a Thrill Open side 2, really good. Then It's a Young Girl in Love, probably the weakest track, or maybe it's Penny or Play Rough, I can't remember. My Young Girl in Love's the weakest track. We got Play Rough and Penny, which are really good. And then it finished with Night Ranger, the title track. This is easy 9 out of 10. The production could be better, it'd be great if it had Midnight Madness's production. But it's a perfect balance of Kelly Key and Jack Blades on this. The vocals are equally shared. You've got the harmonies. You've got great guitar work from Brad and Jeff. really kind of competing really well with the guitar heroes of that time in 1918. You know, it's a little thinner on the ground, the guitar heroes then. So, but you've got Randy Rhoads, you've got Eddie Van Halen, and so on, you know, John Sykes with the Tigers of Pantang. People checked him out, so they do really cool stuff. Yeah, it's a really, really top debut album. I was thinking of another album by a band where it's their best album. It's not a band I'm into, but it's Bon Jovi's debut album, a Runaway, and that's the best song. So that's that weird thing, you know, they totally hit the ground running, really. Although they'll have more success later. This is a really, really great record. Okay, so we've been through all those. You know, if you've not checked out Night Ranger, you know, start with Dawn Patrol, Midnight Madness. If you want to check out a more modern album, Somewhere in California, and you won't go wrong there. They've got AOR elements, but they really are a hard rock band at heart, and that's the thing. It's a unique blend of sounds that differentiate them from other bands in the genre. Okay, thanks very much. Cheers.